Good Mike Work commentaries and Greg Morgan presents the Winged Eagle Podcast.
Hope y'all are having a splendid Monday night. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to your Winged Eagle Podcast for October 23rd, 2023. This is going to be primarily our WWE Raw review, but we got a lot of other news to get into as well that's non-WWE news and also non-AEW news. This is going to be TNA-related stuff, Impact, rebranding to TNA. We're going to talk about all of that and the possibility of CM Punk showing up and working for TNA, possibly Will Ospreay signing with the company as well, and we'll talk a little bit about their pay-per-view a couple of days ago and everything surrounding that. So there's actually some big Impact news, which we rarely talk about on this channel, which should be fun. And then after that, we'll get into tonight's Monday Night Raw. We had another match announced for Crown Jewel, and we'll take a look at that card and discuss, you know, the current state of affairs across WWE and AEW as well. We'll probably talk a little bit about Collision on Saturday night. A couple of interesting things happened on that. And just kind of hang out and talk about whatever else you guys want to talk about this evening. I have been completely out of the loop all night with sports. I don't even have the TV on. I don't know what the Monday night game was for Monday Night Football. And it looks like the Rangers are up 11-3 over the Astros. And I believe if the Rangers win, they go to the World Series, right? I don't even know. You guys are going to have to fill me in on the deets in the chat. I am out of the loop today, but I'm pretty in the loop as it relates to wrestling, and that's what we will be talking about this evening. Thanks to everybody that joined in last night and hung out with us for our Halloween Havoc 1994 watch-along. That was a lot of fun, and that's been a trip. We're going to watch one more next week for Halloween Havoc for October, Halloween Havoc 99 this coming Sunday, and then we will move on to November and start watching some Survivor Series shows. So that'll be pretty fun. And good to see everybody hanging out here in the chat already. Welcome. Thanks for being here. Smash that thumbs up button for me. If you're watching this right now and you're not a subscriber, please do so. We're just a little bit over 200 subscribers away from the big 40,000 on the channel. So that will be coming very soon. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, all that good stuff. I will do some shout outs here right now and say hello to my channel members like Nick Musser and JJ Leg and Michael Kumo and the Juliet. And we got Max Prokibra in here early. We got Sonic Plays, Ben Espinoza, Stephen Harris, Kevin, Ronnie Matthews. Who else is here? Big J's in the house, Devin as well, and Red Raven Rucker and Jay Lambo. Right on. Let me read this comment from Devin. People are saying that the Shinsuke Nakamura promo is a reference to CM Punk's music when he says, "Who will set me free?" It's a reference to Cult of Personality. He won't have to follow me. Only you can set me free. I think fans are really digging hard for CM Punk references. What has happened, or what I've noticed, is that ever since it was reported by credible journalists, people that have never really steered me wrong, that WWE is not currently in talks with CM Punk, and that a lot of the higher-up officials and top talent were adamant that they are not in talks and that CM Punk is not coming in right now. And I think the reason WWE was so adamant about that is so they don't fill up an arena in Chicago with a whole bunch of fans expecting to see him, and then he doesn't come out. But a lot of fans now are starting to notice these references on WWE TV. That has been reported to be just the talent messing around, maybe trolling Punk a little bit, maybe just doing it to pop themselves, or maybe just continuing these hints because if CM Punk does not show up at Survivor Series, that does not mean he's never going to come back into the company again. He might go work in TNA for a little while. It just does as a sign of good faith to show WWE that his problems with AEW was mostly to do with the elite, and he's ready to do business, even if it means working for a company that is about 1/20th the size of the company he was previously working for, or at least his pay would be. So if he comes in the future, you know, keeping all those doors open is a lot of fun. But I don't think any teases that we're seeing right now with the GTS or any teases in Nakamura's promo or anything they're saying on commentary, I don't believe any of that means that he's showing up at Survivor Series in Chicago. They don't need him there. There's a lot going on. And plus, if I'm WWE, given their past history with Phil, given their past history with CM Punk, bringing him in now would ensure that he is going to be involved in some pretty serious shit between now and WrestleMania. And I don't know if that's really going to do your locker room any favors that has already been dealing with peaks and valleys in their morale over the last year and a half with the Vince stuff. So once things are now finally, getting good back there, talent is a little bit less stressed out than they usually are. They're all very comfortable with Triple H and prefer him over Vince McMahon, and things are finally starting to come together there. The last thing you want to do is throw a monkey wrench in there right now, but I don't think that means a Punk WWE return is completely out of the question. I said this a couple of weeks ago. If I'm WWE, I'd bring him back after WrestleMania. I'd take my stories, my talent, everything that we've been working so hard to do for the past couple of years. I would take that stuff into WrestleMania. Don't bring Phil in and plop him in the middle of that card and take away a massive payday from somebody else. Bring him in after WrestleMania. Next time they hit Chicago, maybe they go back there for Money in the Bank. Maybe. How cool would that be? Returning to Chicago for Money in the Bank, and then Phil turns up there. It's a very special show for CM Punk. Probably the biggest match of his entire career took place in that city, at that show, in that building. That would be fun. So I think a CM Punk return down the line is definitely possible. But Devin, I don't think any references to CM Punk that we're seeing right now is a tease for anything. I think that's just WWE amusing themselves and keeping the fans on their toes. But I personally do not think CM Punk is going to be at Survivor Series in Chicago. I would hold that off and wait until WWE hits Chicago again next year, which they do several times a year. Wait until they have a big show, TV, pay-per-view, whatever, in Chicago in 2024. There will be one. And maybe that's where Phil comes back. And maybe we'll see Phil in wrestling before then, just not in WWE or AEW. We'll talk about that in a minute. But the funny thing is about that too, Devin, about Nakamura's vignette tonight, I wasn't much paying attention to it. He kind of mentioned Ricochet a little bit, but I'm like, well, that issue might be done. And it kind of looked to me, the whole theme behind the whole vignette is him trying to find his next opponent, his next feud, his next rival. So we'll see who steps up, if I read that right, but I was only about 30% paying attention to it anyway. So I didn't catch the who will set me free part, but I wouldn't read into that. Although, hell, Nakamura and Punk might be kind of a fun feud. It just won't be very much on the mic. So yeah, I don't know. The teases, I'm not reading too much into those right now. We got Domination Warrior up in here dominating stuff, celebrating their 10th Super on a live stream. What's up, Greg? This is 2020. Is 2023 the best year as far as PPVs? I'm the wrong guy to ask. My memory, man, it just sucks. I think in modern times, this is one of the best, but I'm pretty sure last year was pretty solid as well. It felt like AEW has been, they didn't have a single disappointing pay-per-view for the first couple of years of their existence. The first time I can remember, being a little bit worried about things in AEW was about a year ago when the Brawl Out stuff happened. So I think 2023 is probably a candidate because last year they were still dealing with a little bit of Vince in 2022. He was still, in charge of things all the way up through WrestleMania and Cody's debut and stuff like that. So maybe 2022 doesn't quite cut it. In 2021 and 2020, we're still dealing with pandemic and the remnants of the pandemic. So yeah, I mean, are there better pay-per-views? Are there better pay-per-view years than 2023? Shit, man. Maybe not. WrestleMania was good despite everything this year. Good Rumbles, good international shows. Everything's been good from both companies. Chris Ludek, my friend, good to see you, man. Appreciate you being here. Could Punk possibly sign a short-term deal with TNA just for WWE to take notice, and maybe he gets signed by next year? Yeah, that's what I talked about this past week, and I'm going to talk about the same thing in a minute, is that if Punk really wants to get back into WWE, and WWE's kind of playing hard to get, Phil going to TNA, working with them, helping them out, that might be a good way to show WWE that he wants to work, he wants to contribute, he wants to help, and that could help him. So I kind of think, Impact is not as unlikely as a destination for Punk as it might seem, especially now with the rebranding and some of the stuff that they appear to want to do, because you can change the name and the logo and give the fans that nostalgia, but what's that really going to do to grow your audience at the end of the day? Nothing. What could grow your audience, however, is signing a blockbuster free agent like that. I mean, imagine if Punk and Ospreay were your, 1-2 punch here to really, build this company and help return it to previous, levels of popularity. You know, wrestling market's pretty flooded right now. AEW and WWE doing their thing and all the indies around it, NXT, Ring of Honor. Not sure where TNA really has a place, but they do have history and they do have a fan base from those times. And unlike ECW, it's not too late to do like a TNA reunion show, which I think they talked about back during the pandemic, and they dropped the idea. You know, there's a lot of talent that helped build that promotion that could technically still be used. Even ones with contracts, you know, maybe even Samoa Joe. It would be so nice if WWE was like, all right, AJ, you can go cut a promo down. You can't wrestle, but if you want to make an appearance for them, help them out, you've got our blessing. That would be so awesome if we could see that. You know, just for the good of the TNA brand and all of that. But we're going to be talking about TNA in just 1 second. Yeah, and it does not look like the six-sided ring will be coming back either, so that's good. But just wanted to knock out those early super chats. Thank you again, everyone, for being here, and happy Monday to you. Don't forget to smash that thumbs up button for me, and make sure you subscribe. Now, this is going to be your WWE Raw review for October 23rd, 2023. But before we get to the Raw review, we got to talk about some wrestling news. We had some big news over the weekend. We did the podcast on Saturday, which was just a couple of hours before Collision and Bound for Glory aired on pay-per-view. Now, I had no plans to watch Bound for Glory, although I was interested in that Will Ospreay and Speedball Mike Bailey match because I knew that would be good. And apparently they went out there and had a match of the year candidate. So far, I have only seen highlights. I saw the finish, saw a couple of, you know, spectacular sequences in the match, but I haven't watched it from start to finish. But they've wrestled each other a bunch of times. And then here, you know, as I've talked about Will Ospreay lately, I've been a really big fan of his, you know, within the last year, you know, going down the Ospreay rabbit hole of matches. And, you know, I've always appreciated him. And I think the first time I kind of took notice of him was maybe around 2015 or something, but when he was super young. But now I view him personally as the best wrestler in the world. I view him as what AJ Styles was in the prime of his career. I mean, Ospreay, I believe, is like, what, 30, 31, 32? He's young, and he is so obscenely talented that he is of that caliber now. I put him in the same level as an AJ Styles, as a Seth Rollins, as a Kenny Omega. He's one of them, if not better. And wherever he lands, he's going to be a huge star. And apparently he does have interest in TNA as well. I kind of thought it was a shoo-in for him to go to AEW, but even if WWE brought him in, you know, that little taste, I really like his entrance music as well. His theme is fantastic. And when I saw him at All In, and they kind of did that stadium entrance for him, he had the pyro going around the stadium there. It just kind of made me envision, you know, a WrestleMania entrance for Will Ospreay and how fucking badass that would be. So I think Will Ospreay, apparently he has retained the services of Barry Bloom to negotiate his next deal. He's going to make some money. And I think if he were to work in TNA, there's no way that could be exclusive. It would have to be a deal where he's working with them and then signing a big deal with AEW. I don't think WWE would let him work both, but maybe AEW would if he does want to put some time in TNA. But then again, if CM Punk comes in, I don't know if Tony Khan wants his talent fraternizing around with CM Punk either, because we know how well that worked out last time. So lots to be determined there still with Will Ospreay, but he's probably, at least right now, my favorite wrestler in terms of somebody that I really appreciate watching and who I just think is the goddamn future. I just see a whole lot of AJ and Kenny in him, and I like him a lot. So we'll see where he turns up. Either way, he's going to be the man. Has he come? He hasn't come in number one on one of those PWI 500s yet, right? He will. Don't worry. So the big news of the weekend, like I said, was TNA's Bound for Glory pay-per-view, which took place on Saturday right after we did the podcast. But the biggest news, I think, is what came after the show, where they announced, Scott D'Amore cut a big promo in the ring where he announced the return of TNA. They also had a big video package vignette, big cinematic type of vignette with all of the talent wandering around in the woods for some reason. Kazarian and Jordan Grace and a bunch of others are out there. And they pull out this big old rusty red box that has the TNA logo on it. And when they open it up, it takes you into a video package where they officially announce that Impact is going to be, get this, rebranding back to their old TNA initials and their TNA name. The first show is going to be next year in January at Hard to Kill. That's when the transition will be official. I think they're going to finish up this year of TV tapings with the Impact logos and all of that. And then they will move into returning to TNA next year. Wow. So here is a couple of little snippets from the Anthem media press release. And I quote, TNA will launch 2024 with Hard to Kill on Saturday, January 13th, with a second night of action-packed professional wrestling at the Palms on January 14th. So it's like a 2-night thing, but it's going to be at the Palms on Sunday, January 14th. This is in Vegas, Hard to Kill. That's when TNA will relaunch their, or relaunch their name, I guess, their old initials. It goes on to say the company officials confirmed that the new year will launch a new look TNA wrestling that runs from the entrance ramp to the turnbuckles, in the ring, to larger, more prestigious venues, and much, much more. So sounds like this is part of a bigger, maybe facelift or overhaul or makeover for TNA, cosmetically putting the initials back and then trying to run larger arenas. I mean, they had a pretty low ceiling on Bound for Glory last night. I mean, when you think about where Impact was, I was never really a big fan of the Impact Zone. You guys know my history on this channel of TNA. Was never really a fan, did not watch much of it. But now that years have passed, I can kind of appreciate it for what it was, because we had no competition for 20 years until AEW came around. TNA was the closest thing we had, and they had some talent. They got Kurt Angle in the prime of his life. They had Samoa Joe and AJ Styles and all their TNA originals, coupled and paired with all of the cast-offs from WWE, the RVDs, the Jeff Hardys, everybody else that left there, came in, usually had a lot of success there. And those early days of TNA pre-Hogan and Bischoff, I think, were some of the best in the company and the ones in the years that the fans have the most fondest memories of. So they have a history there. And I think that something like this actually isn't that bad. And I'll talk about why in just a second. Now, Mike Johnson, a PW Insider, he elaborated on the change a little bit more. He said that one of the reasons that they are doing this is to unite the fragmented history of the promotion, because they went from TNA and then they had that weird period where they were Global Force Wrestling. I remember Jeff Jarrett and all his little video packages he was doing for that. I didn't even understand what was going on there, just a rebrand into Global Force. That didn't last. Then they moved to just calling themselves Impact. So they've kind of got all this disheveled history here, so it's a way to kind of put all of that back together. Mike Johnson also noted that the international partners prefer the name TNA as well, and even refer to it as that in internal meetings and whatnot. Earlier this year, the Impact also polled the fans, with many of them also preferring the old name. Apparently, there are new belts that are already made, and there will be no 6-sided ring. So no 6-sided ring is really planned for this new look Impact. Now, in terms of them going back to the TNA name, I personally don't have a problem with it for a couple of reasons. Number one is it's nostalgia. Nostalgia is a very powerful pro wrestling drug. I've experienced it. You guys have. A lot of times whenever we see a reunion show or anything or any blast from the past, it's usually very exciting. Most wrestling fans do have nostalgic feelings and have memories of times when they watched wrestling during different eras of their life or whatever. So from that standpoint, I can understand this working. I can understand fans wanting those initials back, just like I have wanted WWF back, for the past 21 years now. I've lived half of my life with the WWF initials and the other half without. And if I could choose, if it was up to me, I absolutely would bring back WWF. But it's not up to me. They're probably never going to do that. But I kind of understand, the attraction to, history and your memories and things like that. And a lot of people are pointing out that, TNA was what? Vince Russo's idea? Wasn't that the whole idea behind this? It was a play on tits and ass wrestling. I always thought the TNA name was really fucking stupid. I used to shit on it all the time. That's the dumbest name for a wrestling company I've ever heard of. TNA. Total nonstop action. Nothing about the initials TNA made you think about wrestling until TNA was around for a while. Then you just kind of got used to it. TNA wrestling. I stopped thinking about it in reference to tits and ass. I never liked the name. I thought it was stupid, but that's been the case with a lot of things in wrestling. Wrestler names, gimmick names, all that shit. We've had plenty of examples of this where we're like, God damn, that name is stupid, but then it winds up growing on you and you just get used to it. You know, CM Punk, we still call him CM Punk, despite the fact that the CM was supposed to mean chick magnet punk. Chick magnet punk might go work in tits and ass wrestling. How crazy is that? How awesome is that? So with CM Punk, you know, you could change the initials up. Oh, it doesn't mean chick magnet. It means something else. What did he claim it made? Chicago made. It means Chicago made. Okay, fine. So you never really, if CM Punk were to change his name, I don't want to be chick magnet anymore because CM is stupid. So let's change my initials to RK. RK Punk. Well, that doesn't sound right. You know, so TNA, it's like the same thing. Even though how it was founded, the play on words or play on initials that this was, isn't really the case anymore. It's total nonstop action. Yes, it sounds kind of silly, but fans remember that. Fans have a lot of fond memories of that, and bringing that back, I don't think at this point can really hurt Impact. A lot of people are saying, how's it going to grow their audience? Man, I don't know. What do you fucking care? You don't watch anyway. You know, let them, they obviously thought this through, and rebranding back to TNA is something that they thought would be the best way to maybe preserve, some of their history. And since they are, you know, under the Anthem umbrella, they do have money and they are well funded depending on how much Anthem wants to spend on them. I don't really think this is a bad move, you know, because you're bringing something back that the fans remember and appreciate. So as long as this isn't like just a half-assed little thing here, oh, we're just going to change the initials back to TNA and that's going to change the course of, you know, this company's success. No, they're going to have to do more than that. So maybe the TNA name is just part of it. And then the other part is, you know, changing things cosmetically to how their shows look, trying to run a little bit bigger arenas, you know, changing the logos on the ring and the turnbuckles, bringing back old championship belts or redesigning championship belts to reflect the new TNA name, and then bring in some big names. You know, CM Punk is making like 20 times more than any wrestler on Impact's roster. So if CM Punk were to come in, he's going to have to take a pay cut to come in to begin with. But if they were able to sign a couple of major names here, is that going to automatically put them on the level of an AEW or WWE? Of course not, but it could grow their audience and get some more eyeballs on them, because if CM Punk signs with Impact or TNA and starts doing things in TNA, I will watch it. I will check out what CM Punk's doing, and there's probably a lot of people like that. So Punk is someone where in a TNA environment is a needle mover. You know, in AEW, a little bit of a needle mover. In WWE, probably wouldn't be much of one at all. I don't think their ratings would be higher or lower with or without Punk. I think they do great things with him, but I don't think he alone is going to add 50% to their ratings or anything like that. But Impact is a completely different story. So if Punk wants to get in good graces with WWE, if he realizes he's got just a couple of years left, a couple of year window there to finish up his career the way he wants to, his best way to do that is probably wrap things up in WWE, and he's got to show them that he's worth bringing in and he's not going to cause any problems there. One way to do that is to sign with TNA and have a good little year-long run there with them and work hard and help and contribute and do what he can to help that company's business. Maybe Triple H will be like, oh, you know, Phil's grown up, Phil's matured. Maybe I'll text him. We can work something out. I don't know. Again, juicy speculation right there, right? So I think if Punk were to go to TNA, that would be really fun. And there is some evidence that that could in fact happen, because we thought there was a lot of rumors about Punk being at Bound for Glory, like the actual show, because Ace Steel was brought in a tryout role to be a producer for Bound for Glory weekend. And a lot of fans kind of thought, well, that might be one way to get Punk's foot in the door. He did not turn up at Bound for Glory, but he showed up yesterday, the next day at the Impact tapings, which were in Chicago. And House of Wrestling reported this, I believe, yesterday or today. And they said that CM Punk attended the Impact Wrestling tapings the day after Bound for Glory. Punk showed up just before the tapings began, around 6:30 Central Time, and was taken into the locker room area. While backstage, Punk was talking with anyone who wanted to get some time with him, including key Impact talent that he spoke to throughout the taping. So Punk is now starting to stick his nose in Impact and kind of walk around talking to people and just getting a feel for it, I guess. I really think this would be fun. Imagine what that would do, to the wrestling landscape. You still have WWE and AEW doing their thing, dominating everything. And now you've got Punk making all this noise in Impact that just announced that they're going to rebrand back to their old TNA logo, potentially getting the attention of some old fans that maybe don't watch so much anymore. And then you've got, CM Punk coming in as well, who did work in TNA way back in the day. And perhaps you even get Will Ospreay in there for some more shots because he wants to do that as well. So that's all very exciting, I think. I would love for all of this to happen and for TNA to, again, have another last gasp here, just rise from the ashes. I mean, you cannot kill this company. How many times I thought they were dead in the water? And, they just keep coming back. And now, a lot of fans have been putting over the quality of the product in recent months and even the last couple of years, but it's on such a small scale now that somebody like me just doesn't have time for it. I just don't have time. I got too much shit to watch, too much shit to talk about. Until Impact or TNA makes some noise, unfortunately, I've got to ignore them. Same thing with NXT and Rampage. Until good shit happens on those shows, sorry, I'm just probably not going to watch them. So this is all real cool, real interesting to me. Now, like I said, on Saturday, Impact had their Bound for Glory pay-per-view. Mike Bailey and Will Ospreay tore the house down in their match in an early or a late match of the year candidate, I should say. That apparently was a lot of fun, got a lot of good reviews. I've only watched about 6 minutes of the match, so there's a lot more for me to watch actually start to finish, but I did want to get a little bit of an idea of how the match went, how it looked, that type of thing, which I was able to see. Also caught a little glimpse of Mike TNA being inducted along with Don West into the TNA Hall of Fame, which was kind of nice. And Mike TNA doesn't turn up much these days anymore, but he kind of accepted on Don West's behalf. That was very cool. And again, I was never a big TNA fan, but those fans who were huge fans, that was probably pretty special for you guys to see Mike TNA go in the Hall of Fame and honor Don West like that. So yeah, I get it. Here's what Fightful Select had to say today about CM Punk and Will Ospreay coming into Impact or potentially coming into Impact. Excuse me. It seemed as if a lot of people thought that there was a possibility that Punk could join the company at Bound for Glory, but clearly that didn't happen. Fightful reported recently that while it was clearly a long shot, Impact Wrestling and those associated with it were open to him coming into the company. Punk appeared backstage months ago and made a good impression on many people there and got along with a number of people on the roster, seemingly enjoying his time there. As House of Wrestling reported, Punk was backstage at Sunday's Impact tapings and was seen as very helpful. Ace Steel was brought into the company to work as a producer, which many saw as a sign that the company wanted to get Punk in. However, Impact had been interested in Steel when he'd been let go from AEW the first go-around when Punk wasn't even available. A few weeks ago, those close to Punk claimed they didn't think he'd want to join the company, but also said that if he woke up one day and just decided he wanted to wrestle Josh Alexander or the Motor City Machine Guns, he likely could if he wanted to, with another person in touch with Punk saying he would under the right circumstances. A big hurdle on the surface and the outside looking in would be the salary, as Punk in AEW was annually making about 15 to 20 times what a lot of the top Impact wrestlers were making. Speaking of TNA wrestling and money, Will Ospreay had a very positive experience in Chicago this weekend at Impact Wrestling shows and noted that he wanted to come back before his New Japan deal is up in February. We're told by several that Ospreay's next contract will likely be heavily financially motivated and has realized this will be the most important deal of his career. Earlier this year, he'd been keen on staying with New Japan, but he's since opened up his options. He hired Barry Bloom in the spring of this year, and AEW and WWE were aware of it by August. And Ospreay has also gone on record to say that he is open to moving here to the States. I think that's likely. I think that's what he's going to have to do. And I think AEW or WWE will pay him mega money. I mean, it just depends. I mean, this one's up to Triple H, if he can convince, I don't know who he has to go to. I don't know who decides how much you can offer someone. But if I'm in Triple H's shoes, I see a guy that has got a good, 10 to anywhere from 8 to 15 years in the ring ahead of him still, with a minimum of half that still wrestling at a stupidly high level. So there's a lot of star potential there. You know, you can see, like, when you just watch him over the last 8 years, watch him grow, get bigger, you know, and just his technique, and he just has presence to him now that he didn't have in 2016. And when he comes out to the ring, he looks like a star, a major wrestling star with exposure and all of that. He looks like a main eventer. He performs like one. I believe he's the best wrestler in the world, and I am all about Will Ospreay. So wherever he lands, I'm happy, because I try to think of him in every scenario. And no matter what scenario I stick him in, I smile. I'm like, man, get that boy a WrestleMania entrance. That would be some fun shit. Makes me smile. Stick him in AEW with all of the things he can do there and all of the opponents, and with maybe some of the cross promotion he can still do with New Japan, and maybe working a little bit in TNA, which I don't think WWE is going to let him do. That also makes me smile. Or if he just went to TNA exclusively, I don't know how much that would make me smile, because I feel like a talent of his level needs to be on a large stage. I think anything he does in TNA needs to be side gigs or something like that. But again, his contract coming up next year, as noted in the report, this is going to be the biggest contract of his life. This is where he's going to make the most money he's ever made so far. So it's probably going to have to be an exclusive deal. You know, when you're going to be, you know, putting down 7 figures, then yeah, it's probably going to have to be exclusive, you know. But then again, with Tony Khan, you never know. He's pretty much open to everything. But right now, Ospreay pretty much is working for all 3 of those companies. He's the current United States champion in New Japan. He's working for Impact, and he's been appearing in AEW regularly all year. So for me, Ospreay staying there and just doing AEW and New Japan and Impact and TNA maybe on the side would be great. I might even prefer that over WWE. But the thought of him going into WWE now without Vince there, you know, and turning him into a fucking clown or something, you know, without Vince there and Triple H there, you know, and all the other talent there that, you know, is probably excited to see Ospreay. Jesus, man, that would be fun too. So I'm just going to sit back and just be happy with whatever he does. When February rolls around and we hear what Will Ospreay is going to do, I'm just going to be excited for it, because I know it's going to be good. And that's really exciting shit. But apparently he did enjoy his time in TNA, and Ospreay, you know, at his age, he's somebody that probably has a lot of fond memories of watching TNA as well. So it's probably a big deal to him, you know, be like one of us getting to work for, you know, the company that we watched or something. So he probably has a lot of fond memories, and probably already was a fan of TNA as it is. And now that they're going to rebrand, he sees, you know, possibly an opportunity to be there, or be there a little bit. So we will see. That's really interesting news. It was news that I didn't expect to hear. That something like that wasn't even on my radar. I didn't even know that Bound for Glory was on Saturday. I was reading off the Ace Steel news. I'm like, Bound for Glory weekend. I wonder when that is. I'm like, oh, it's this weekend. So I had no intention of even watching the show. But then when you hear the news coming out of this, I'm like, that's kind of interesting. We're going to get TNA back. And now, like I said, I was never a fan of them in general, because they just weren't doing it for me. You know, it was the same reason I didn't like WCW TV shows, because I just didn't like the soundstage setting, the Universal Studios crap, the Impact Zone. You know, now granted, with TNA, they did have a lot of wrestling fans in there, where WCW, it wasn't a lot of wrestling fans. It was just people lining up to go in there and see it and being told when to applaud and stuff. You know, so in Impact, you did have a little bit more regulars, but it was in the same place every time. They weren't able to, like, you know, really travel or get out there, you know, at first. And plus the 6-sided ring thing I didn't even completely love. And it was just hard for me to get into it. And I didn't view TNA as legitimate competition to WWE, you know, because they didn't really have, until a while there on Spike, you know, they weren't on a strong cable network or anything like that. Those early days, they were doing the weekly pay-per-views, right? Something like that, you know, and that kind of morphed into other things. And they did find success and had a lot of great talent there. But just the brand overall was never something that I really watched with that much enjoyment, you know, until now. Now I'm able to go back and look at some of the great moments when people post stuff online and social media, and just, you know, little snippets from a match, or, you know, or great segments or angles or surprises, anything like that happened in TNA. You know, I look at that, I'm like, wow, I really did miss out on a lot. And you guys send me a lot of that stuff. So I'm pulling for him, man. I really am. I want the more wrestling, the merrier. I want to see how many players can get in the mix here and actually find success And with Impact, even though they're pretty small time, they should capitalize on the history that they do have. This company's been around now for what, 21 years? When did they come into existence? 2002? So they've got a couple of decades behind them now. I mean, hell, they lasted longer than WCW lasted, because I think NWA became WCW in what, like 89 or something like that. And, by 2001, 12 years later, they were done. So they've nearly doubled the run of WCW, technically, in some ways, if you want to look at it that way. So they should capitalize on that history. Unfortunately, a lot of those moments the fans remember most fondly from TNA, a lot of that talent is gone, but still, referencing the past is usually can be successful in wrestling. And we've seen that with with ECW and lots of other examples. So best of luck to TNA Wrestling as they revert back to TNA. Tits and ass wrestling is back. Okay, buckle up. It's coming in January. Before we get into a little bit of Collision, let me just cruise back here to the chat. Make sure I got you guys all refreshed. It was a beautiful speech by Tenay. I'm happy to hear that. Cockman Punk, Barry says. Okay, that would be an interesting name. What does the CM for? What does the CM stand for? Cockman. Ricochet is still in, or Ospreay is still in his 20s. I don't know how old Ospreay is. I thought he was 30, but I have no idea. He's young. Whatever he is, he has his career ahead of him, and that's why I'm all about me some Ospreay right now. Dude's awesome. I mean, it would be cool if he did sign with WWE, and think about the hit matches him and Ricochet could have. That could be great, but still, I think I might prefer him doing what he's doing. Anyway, last Saturday, we also had AEW Collision that basically went opposite of Bound for Glory. I didn't see a lot of this show. Apparently, they might have been teasing a Blood and Guts match, which they've already done Blood and Guts this year, but Collision is on Saturdays. Survivor Series is going to be on a Saturday. They might, and Survivor Series goes way back with War Games. That show ran opposite War Games in 87. And Vince had to threaten cable companies that he wouldn't give them WrestleMania if they played the other thing. There's a lot of history between Survivor Series and War Games. And now War Games is featured at Survivor Series, which is even crazier. And potentially, maybe we could get a Blood and Guts match on the same night on TNT to try to harm the viewership of Survivor Series. But these days, WWE doesn't really sell pay-per-views anymore, so they don't have to worry about that. And it's not on cable, so there's no ratings to worry about. So I don't think WWE gives a shit if some Peacock views are taken away. I don't know how they measure that metric, really. So that could be cool. I hope they do it. I mean, I'm going to still watch Survivor Series, but when Survivor Series is over, I'm going to watch Blood and Guts. I think that would be awesome if it happened. Just because of the interesting history that dates back now, 35, 36 years with Survivor Series and War Games and all that stuff. Might be fun if that happens. We did get a dream match on AEW Collision. Bryan Danielson defeated Andrade El Idolo. This was an awesome match. Fucking great match. Dream match? I don't know, Tony. Don't be tossing around dream match so nonchalantly. Me personally, I don't care, but you know how fans like to get a boat oar up their ass about you. So whenever you do something like that, all that's going to do is fan the flames of these dipshits, and they're going to come after you with fucking pitchforks. So if it's not a dream match, Tony, don't call it one. You're just asking for trouble. But the best thing about that match was after it was over, when Danielson won, shook hands with Andrade, I believe, right? And then the lights went out, came back on. Malachi Black is in the ring, blasts Danielson in the face with a black mask. Malachi has not had much singles work in AEW since he signed there. The House of Black has been good, but it's been a lot of kind of start and stop with them. We know Malachi Black wants to go back to WWE. His wife is there. He wants to go back there. He can't. He's locked up in a contract. He's stuck. So he's got to make the best of it. So he's there now back. I've always thought Malachi could challenge for a world championship, but it's been so long since he really felt important. Hopefully this little issue he has with Danielson can translate into some amazing matches, and I think it will. Danielson and Black should be awesome. Really awesome to hear the voice of Memphis wrestling legend Dave Brown. Holy crap. Still sounds the same. He called the Jeff Jarrett and Eddie Kingston, what was it, a Memphis street fight, I think, match that was nuts, and was able to call that. And he called a lot of Jarrett's early matches when he was young. So that was kind of cool. But AEW's got a big one set for Dynamite. I didn't write the matches down, but I believe Okada's coming in. Do I hear that right? Are we going to get some Okada on Wednesday? That's crazy. But I meant to write down the Dynamite lineup because I know there's a couple of matches announced. And props to WWE for announcing a bunch of matches for next week's Raw. I like that. And the best part about it is the crazy kook can't change it. He can't call up and mumble a bunch of changes to Triple H over the phone. Ari Emanuel said, get the fuck out of creative, you weirdo, and let Triple H handle it. So Triple H is now announcing matches much like AEW does, and I've always really appreciated that about AEW when I watch a Dynamite, how they'll just start running through the card for next week. It tells me as a fan that they're planning ahead. Is Tony Khan making the best booking decisions in some of these matches? Not necessarily, but at least they're planning ahead, and they are a week or so ahead, and they're not just flying by the seat of their pants, which is what WWE has felt like they've been doing for like 20 years. You know, I mean, how just last year, this in the last couple of years, how many times would I tweet 10 minutes before Raw started? I'd be like, WWE, you want to, I don't know, announce a match for tonight, or you just expect us to tune in and you make up everything on the fly? You know, and the rewrites and the script tear-ups 2 hours before showtime and all this nonsense that you heard about backstage. It's so refreshing to watch Raw tonight and hear Michael Cole and Wade Barrett run through what we're going to see next week. I like that. So more of that from everybody, please. It shows me that you're thinking ahead and you're not just winging it. Because sometimes I felt like WWE purposely wasn't giving a fuck. I really did. You know, I felt like they didn't care. I felt like they got some sort of perverse enjoyment. Triple H too. He's not innocent in this. He used to hate the fans and troll us and talk shit to us and that stuff. And I truly, honestly, genuinely believe that the McMahons and Triple H during some of those years really enjoyed when we were unhappy. And that's fucked up to say and to think, but I think it's true. Triple H is different now. Things are different. The whole landscape in the company is different. But before AEW was around, they had no reason to do anything special. They knew the fans were going to tune in every week, no matter how bad it was. And they told us that, you know, but the ratings did decline week after week. But in WWE's mind, they were the only wrestling. If fans wanted to watch wrestling, they're going to have to watch us. There was no motivation on their end to give the fans what we wanted, you know, but that changed. You know, once AEW came around, then they're like, oh, okay, we can't just phone this shit in anymore. And then the Vince stuff, you know, happened. NXT ended. Triple H took a bigger creative role, and all of the you know, the great, you know, storytelling in the matches and the things that Triple H was doing in NXT practicing, you know, he now brought to the main roster, and we see what Triple H's style of booking looks like. So that's phenomenal that we're starting to see this much forward thinking, you know, in both companies. That's just awesome. So anyway, we need to talk about Raw. We need to review it. The show opened up with Judgment Day. They come out. It's only Finn Balor and Damian Priest. So they're the only two. They got their belts. They're happy. They're celebrating. Cody Rhodes interrupts, so we get his awesome song. Comes down to the ring. Priest calls him a failure, calls his story a failure. He goes, what is your story anyway? Do we even know? I think your story is a failure. Cody wants to fight right there, and Priest is like, are you stupid? I have a match with Jey Uso in the main event. Did you forget? And then Priest was like, how about we do it at Crown Jewel? And Cody's like, cool. So Cody accepts, and that match is official now. Damian Priest and Cody at Crown Jewel. I was starting to wonder what Cody was going to do. So then we get a brawl. This breaks down into a brawl. And that after Dominic and Mommy come out, by the way. So Cody, after he accepts the challenge, he still wants to fight. He starts taking his shit off. Dominic and Rhea Ripley come out. Jey Uso attacks Dominic from behind and then gives Rhea a little look up and down, which I loved, and gets in the ring to help out Cody. JD McDonough shows up and attacks Cody on the outside, and then Priest and McDonough basically Pillmanize Cody's leg. They stick it in the chair. They press it like up against the ring steps, and then they smash it, concerto it with the other chair or kick it or something. So Cody got his leg all messed up. They kind of cut to him and Jay in the back to go to the trainer's room. So they weren't like carrying him off in an ambulance or anything like that, but they were definitely giving Cody a bad wheel for the rest of the night. And this Raw, by the way, give me your thoughts and your grades of the show, A, B, C, or D, or your number grades, because I didn't think tonight's Raw was as exciting as some of the last few weeks' Raws have been. A lot of what they were doing tonight was really predictable. And the moment I saw backstage that Cody wasn't going to be taken to the hospital, I'm like, well, he's going to come out in the Priest and Jay match. That's just what he's going to do. So it wasn't really, it was formulaic, I should say, and that's some things that we're still going to get from Triple H too. After that, we had a tag team match, Chad Gable and Otis teaming up to take on the New Day. New Day is back. Kofi and Xavier, pretty strong. Always just happy to see them back. New Day got the win. Xavier pinned Otis after Kofi dove over the top rope to take out Gable. Pretty cool. And New Day got the win there. Becky Lynch was backstage. She's got a big championship match on Raw tonight. She was defending her NXT title against Indy Hartwell, who never lost the title. She is conducting an interview or doing an interview backstage talking about that match, and you can see Xia Li lurking in the background, so that was kind of cool. After that, we got an Ivar vignette, so one of those crazy Viking ceremonies with the bonfire and the crazy shit and the face paint and the spears and the swords and the horses and all that shit. I don't get it. So they did all that. It's basically because Eric is injured that they're kind of pushing Ivar as a singles right now. And I think that's a good idea because some of the matches he's been having on TV lately have been really good. And apparently it's been impressing management. But I thought it was funny that they were doing a vignette for him like he was coming to the WWE. Look out. I'm like, he wrestled on the show last fucking week. Why are we doing this like vignette warning the WWE roster? Because when they came back from it, I think it was Wade Barrett was like, oh, the Raw roster better take notice of Ivar. And I'm like, well, Ivar is already there. Like, what are they taking notice of? They saw him today in catering. Hey, what's up, guys? So like, why are they all of a sudden scared of one half of this tag team that's been there for several years? I don't know, but he's a beast. He's a big guy. If he wasn't in a tag team, he's somebody I think that would have a look as a single star. So maybe they're going to try to get him over. And then if he does get over and gains some popularity and at least gets to the same level that maybe like a Bronson Reed is at right now, maybe when Eric comes back, these guys go their separate ways. I mean, they are a far cry from what War Machine ever was. And it's sad what happened to them. So, and their name is so stupid and all of that. So maybe this is the best thing for them and best of luck to Ivar. I do like him. I just thought the vignettes were silly. And I just don't understand the obsession with wanting to be a Viking. I just think it's weird. Rhea Ripley goes to chat with Seth Rollins backstage. She's kind of trying to recruit everybody. She was messing around with Drew McIntyre last week. So now she is approaching Seth and basically just says, hey, you got a spot in the Judgment Day if you want it. And basically, she's just in recruitment mode. It's funny how JD McDonough can't get into the faction, but they want everybody else and their mom to join, other than a little weird-looking JD. So then after that, we have Indy Hartwell and Candice. They're in the locker room. Indy's taping up her wrist. She's getting ready. Her match is next. And hot-ass Natalya comes in with her awesome gear that I just think has been looking great lately. And they mentioned Tegan Knox's injury. So this is where I must ask assistance from the chat. What's wrong with Tegan? Is this a shoot injury or a worked injury? Was there an angle done on NXT where she was injured, or is she injured? And please tell me it ain't a knee. They didn't make it sound like it was that bad. Natty said that she'll be back later on. Natalya has a match against the tag team champions, and they kind of ask her, Candice and Indy, say like, well, what are you going to do about that? And she goes, well, I'll worry about that later. I just came in to wish you luck. So she did the babyface thing, came in and wished Indy luck and left. And then we get Becky Lynch versus Indy Hartwell one-on-one. Pretty good little match here. I really liked Indy Hartwell. I always have. I really like her size. I remember when she was in the way. I guess I just hadn't seen enough of her yet, and they were doing a lot of those skits where she was like sitting down. And I thought she was funny and liked her and everything, but I was under the impression that she was just like a normal-sized women's wrestler. And then I didn't realize that she is a tall drink of water. And I was like, oh my God. And then I really started watching her more. I'm like, she is athletic. She's got a great look, great presence, all that stuff to her, and just became an instant fan. I've loved her ever since. Plus, I'm also a Dexter Lumis fan. I have loved their relationship. I wish they would bring that back. I don't even know where Dexter Lumis is, by the way, but it would be nice if they could somehow get back together on TV. So I've always just been an indie fan. I did not think she was going to be beating Becky Lynch here, but I did and I was happy that Indy Hartwell was getting a match on Raw. Let's use more of her, please. Now that Triple H is there, I think Indy's got a good chance to get some screen time under the Greenwich Blue Blood. Disarmor for the win here. Indy taps out to the Disarmor. Becky retains, and a pretty good outing there for Indy, and she got the title shot that she has pretty much deserved because she never did drop the NXT title. Becky, after the match, had a little face-off with Lyra. It's not Valkyrie, like Taya Valkyrie, but it's Lyra Valkyria or something. What that girl's name is? She's on the outside, a little face-off with Becky Lynch. They are facing tomorrow night and on NXT Halloween Havoc Night 1. So I believe Night 1 is tomorrow, and Night 2 will be the following week on the 30th. So props to Becky. I mean, she is doing a lot of good work right now. She is working and wrestling. She's basically like Orange Cassidy in that international title, or she's doing a Moxley right now. She's just working with everybody. A lot of young talent too, and she is somebody who feels like she's embracing this veteran role that she's in now. I mean, when you think about it, Becky definitely can be classified as a veteran. All the four horsewomen can. You know, they've all been doing this a long time. So now they are on the other side of this. They were once being mentored. Now they can be the mentees. And Becky's got a belt, the NXT title. It's given her a chance to talk and spend time and work with the generation coming after her, just like she was given time by all of those legends. I like to see the cycle like this. Like, as a wrestling fan, you know, who's been watching since forever, it's really nice to kind of see this cycle continue. And I think people like Becky, people like Natalya, I also think really enjoys her role as a veteran. I enjoy my role as a veteran now in my job, in the restaurant business. I've been in the restaurant business 30 years. And so I like talking to an 18-year-old busboy and kind of giving him a little, you know, priceless advice, you know, on some of the things to do that, you know, he's never heard before because I got 30 years on him. So, you know, things like that. Of course, restaurants and wrestling, the exact same thing, right? But, you know, it's the same type of deal. I like that Becky really seems to enjoy, you know, kind of doing this. And I would probably be the same way if I was lucky enough to be a successful veteran wrestler who was respected with a championship, who a lot of people in that performance center right now might have become wrestlers because of her or wanted to. That girl, our girl Izzy is in the ring now. How crazy is that? And at some point, I'm expecting to see Izzy and Bayley in the same ring together. And when you think about Becky, especially with the women, you know, she has been now in the company and kind of been a star for about 8 or 9 years, since 2015, at least, when she's been on the main roster. So there's probably a lot of young women in NXT right now that idolized Becky. So I just think that's cool. So anyway, she's got the match tomorrow night at Halloween Havoc against somebody who I don't even know who she is. After that, we had the contract signing for the big fatal 5-way at Crown Jewel. Rhea Ripley defending her title against everybody. Pierce tried to do a different thing here. I kind of like this. Pierce was trying to bring everybody out one at a time. It was, I believe it was Shayna Baszler. No, Raquel came out first, then Shayna, then Zoe, then Nia. So as they're coming out, I think, like I said, Raquel comes out first, and he's got the contract right there. He goes, here, sign this. And she signs it. Then Shayna comes out. He has her sign it. Zoe, same thing. And I like that. I'm like, oh, this is a good idea here because you know this is going to break down into a brawl. Just get them all in here, sign it, get the hell out of the ring. I don't know why they just didn't do this backstage. Pierce could have just approached all of these women individually in various parts of the arena and said, here, put your name down. But no, this has got to be done in the ring. So we kind of had this like rapid fire signing here on the contracts. Nia doesn't want to sign it first because she's like, where's Rhea? And Adam's like, she's not here. Fucking sign this. It's not about that. Sign it. I'm gonna have her sign it in the back later. So the plan here was for Pierce to get the challengers to sign and have the champion sign in the back. But the champion wound up coming out. Then, of course, a big brawl ensues, and Rhea never signed the contract. She didn't sign it until later, a few segments later, backstage, when Adam Pearce approached her with the contract and she finally put her name down. So she didn't even sign it in the in-ring segment, but everybody else did. I think that, Rhea, with the run that she's on, unless you wanted to give one of these women a run with the title, but you also didn't want to beat Rhea, this would be a scenario where I would get the title off of Rhea. But I think that it's good not to hot potato the titles a lot. And I like the fact that Triple H does appear to be a booker that likes to have long title reigns. We got 500 days now for Gunther. Congratulations, Gunther, by the way. Roman Reigns has been WWE champion now since Obama's first term. So he likes this stuff. I mean, he just likes it. So I can't see Rhea Ripley really dropping it here if the plan, what we're hearing or what maybe the fans are speculating for our WrestleMania 40 match to be Rhea Ripley versus Becky Lynch. I could see Becky dropping the NXT, but I think for that match, I would probably have Rhea hold the belt the whole time, but I don't know. So we will see. I'm not expecting her, though, to drop it at Crown Jewel. Then we get a weird deal backstage. Akira Tozawa, who's been kind of like the Olivia Newton-John of the Alpha Academy. He's got the pink. He's got the headband. He had the little girly weights last week. He was getting physical. He runs into Bronson Reed and challenges Bronson Reed to a match. And Bronson's like, I'm in a pretty good mood today, so I'm going to decline your request because I don't want to kill you, which was pretty funny. But he kept poking the bear. Bronson Reed's like, okay, fine. You're going to get what you asked for, and accepts the challenge. And Tozawa was left alone. Maxine shows up and she's like, oh my God, what happened? And she was like, oh man, I'm going to be in trouble. Gable's going to be mad because I was supposed to be watching him. So I don't know. Tozawa somehow is now regressed into this character who, can't think for himself. He's a complete fucking animal, I guess, and needs to be walked and fed and watered and all that shit. So you can't leave him alone for a minute or he's going to start challenging guys 4 times his size to matches, and he'll be facing Bronson Reed later on. I think we can tell how that one's going to go. We had Johnny Gargano taking on Giovanni Vinci after that, and this was fun because you kind of knew how it was going to go. Ciampa is back, thank God. I'm glad to see him. I was a little worried there. He showed up to stop Ludwig Kaiser from interfering, and then Gargano was able to hit the one final beat on Vinci for the win, and DIY reunites, and they are going to have a match together next week. First tag team match, first time teaming up in 3 years, something like that. Whew, that's awesome. We got that Shinsuke Nakamura vignette that I mentioned earlier on. I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to it, but it sounded like he's just kind of out there fishing for his next rivalry or his next opponent. So whoever you think that might be, let us know there. And then we get Logan Paul for some reason. Logan Paul came out there. He's got the match with Rey Mysterio at Crown Jewel. And he came out, and I wasn't sure if he was going to be babyface or heel in this thing anyway, because in that Dylan Dennis fight, that guy was such a monumental prick. It made Logan Paul look like the Pope. So I felt like Paul was the babyface in that. And then when him and Ray kind of had their little show of respect on SmackDown, I'm like, oh, maybe this is going to be cool, Logan Paul. But no, he's back, and they probably wanted to capitalize on all that heat that Logan Paul has previously gotten from the fans. I was at a Raw a couple of years ago here in San Diego where he was just annihilated by the crowd. And we all know how Dominic gets treated by the crowd. So Logan comes out, talks smack, says he's going to beat Rey Mysterio for the title, and that's when Dominic shows up. Now, unfortunately, WWE was clearly piping in some boos here, which is unfortunate, but it was a pretty cool visual to see 2 heat magnets like that kind of coming together. Dominic and Logan Paul both get a lot of boos from the fans, with or without the piped in shit. So that was a lot of fun. Dominic and Logan basically kind of show props to each other and show respect to each other. And Logan tells the fans to show Dominic some respect. And then he asks Samantha Irving to come in the ring because they're old friends from SummerSlam and announce him as the new U.S. champ. So she comes in the ring. She's very apprehensive. She doesn't want to do it. That's when Ricochet shows up and tackles Logan Paul, gets Dominic down, goes for the shooting star, but Logan pulls Dom out of the ring, and they run away. So that would be kind of cool if we can set that up for TV, like Ricochet and Rey Mysterio versus Dominic and Logan Paul. But I don't think that's a match we're going to get on TV, is it? would they really throw that at us next week on Raw or this week on SmackDown before we get to Crown Jewel? Maybe that would be kind of cool if they did. If not, maybe they can do it after the fact. Then we have Chelsea Green and Piper Niven. They are taking on Natalya and a mystery partner because we don't know who her partner is going to be. It was supposed to be Tegan Knox. She got hurt. Actually, I was going to read here, see if anybody had that Tegan info for me. But yeah, so Tegan is injured. Yes, Tegan Knox got injured. Thank you, Stephen Harris. I was just trying to find out if it was legit or not. I didn't really read about that injury, so I don't know. So hopefully whatever's going on with Tegan will not keep her out long. That poor girl has had some rotten fucking luck. So hopefully this time around it's not as bad. But that means Natalya needs a partner for tonight. So her partner turns out to be a returning Nikki Cross. But something's wrong with Nikki Cross. She comes out completely stone-faced. We know her to be very wild, running around, just grabbing shit and taking bites out of it. She's nuts. And she just comes out with this blank-ass stare, just walking straight, not paying attention to nothing. She stands on the apron, does not blink, does not move, does not react, doesn't do anything, just stands there as Natalya gets the shit kicked out of her. And then she just walks away and leaves at one point. Just walks away, leaving Natalya by herself. And Piper is able to hit that little cool splash thing that she does on to Natty and pin her. And the tag team champs in a non-title affair got the win there. Chelsea celebrates hard with Piper Niven. I love Chelsea Green. I just love her. She's phenomenal. She does so well in this. And I think back to when she first came in and they were using her a little bit, like before she was rehired, because I think she was released after that, right? And then they brought her back, and she's been great since she's been back because this character is so well done. But like before that, when she was trying to be like normal and legit and like just like one of your normal, typical run-of-the-mill wrestlers on the women's roster, it was like there was nothing special there. She didn't stand out, but she stands out now. My God, she is something else. Loved that. We had little interaction between Jey Uso and Drew McIntyre backstage. Then after that, we got the match that I was really looking forward to, Drew McIntyre versus Sami Zayn. I thought this would be good, and it was. It was Sami kind of looked ready to fight. He just had a different, seriousness about him, and the two had a really good match here. Rhea Ripley shows up, jumps on the apron to distract Sami just long enough for Drew McIntyre to take advantage of that and Claymore Sami Zayn for the win. Some more teases there that Drew McIntyre maybe isn't joining Judgment Day, but there's definitely perhaps an agreement or something. And if we do wind up getting a War Games match, Judgment Day brought up the Bloodline in the promo in the beginning. So that's still very much on the table. There's also been a report today that the War Games match is not going to be Raw versus SmackDown. Thank you. Hopefully that's an accurate report. So if it's not going to be, that means that the War Games option that we were all hoping for, Judgment Day and Bloodline guys against a bunch of baby faces, can happen. So, and that can kind of be an inter-promotional thing as well, but we're going to have guys from both brands on the same team and shit. So it's not really for bragging rights. But since they brought that up, and Rhea Ripley has kind of been going around, trying to, recruit guys or maybe make agreements with them, maybe Drew McIntyre, if he's in the War Games match on the babyface side, then I feel like he's definitely turning heel. I almost think that's obvious. But if they just leave him out completely because he doesn't really have a good relationship with a Jey Uso or a Sami Zayn, obviously, then maybe he is a factor in determining the outcome. Maybe he shows up and helps the heels win, and maybe he joins Judgment Day, or maybe he, just helps him out and goes on his own. I think he's probably better on his own as a heel, or maybe he joined SmackDown somehow. I don't know, but maybe he could play a part in that, or he could be on one of the teams by that point. We really don't know, but he had no problem taking advantage of the heel distraction here, which I liked because, they're taking their time here, but I kind of want Drew to go full batshit. I don't want him just to be regular heel. I want to be like him, crazy, dangerous, holy shit, you don't want to face him heel. I want to see violent Drew. I want to see Killer Instinct Drew. I want to see all of that because if he just goes heel and does heel shit, so what? Don't be a monster. Just tear shit up, man. Just tear it up. You got a lot of frustration to vent, and he has every right to vent a lot of it as a heel. So I'm ready for that transition to fully take place. We cut backstage. I like this because Nick Aldis is in the arena, just like I predicted, because on Friday night, we saw Adam Pearce on SmackDown, and I was like, why is he there? So now we see Nick Aldis on Raw. He's talking to Caden and the other one, and Adam Pearce steps in and he goes, hey, I told you it's cool that you're here. You should just watch the show. I don't really want you chatting it up with my roster members and trying to poach them and whatnot. And Nick Aldis is like, okay, I can see where this is going. I'm just going to leave. And he just voluntarily leaves. So Pearce didn't have to fine him or escort him from the building or anything like that. He just leaves. But the two of them definitely had a little back and forth there. And after Aldis leaves, Nikki Cross just zombie walks right past Adam Pearce right after that exchange with Aldis. And then he's got this zombie walking past him and he goes, I need a drink, which I really liked because what a crazy fucking job that must be for him if you're looking at this realistically. So it got me thinking, though, because, we've been talking about the Survivor Series and what they might do. I would like to see it just be booked like a regular card, and have that War Games match as your main event. But I wouldn't be opposed to having like a traditional 5-on-5, just one match. And we've been talking a lot about the brand supremacy shit and how stupid it is and how it's nonsense. And that absolutely should not be a factor at this year's Survivor Series, and hopefully they will not do and book a card with red shirts versus blue shirts because that will make me fucking puke, and I think we all will. And I think it's pretty safe to say that that won't happen, but we don't really know for sure yet. There has been a report that the War Games match will not be a Raw versus SmackDown thing, which is good. That means we're likely going to get that scenario that they've been kind of teasing for a while, Bloodline and Judgment Day guys against Cody, Jay, Sammy, Owens, and somebody else. And then Roman Reigns could potentially have a title match, maybe against AJ Styles, unless Roman wants to get in the War Games match so he can have, LA Knight's another babyface they'd probably throw in there. Putting Roman in the War Games match would give him opportunities to have more LA Knight and Cody interactions, but, maybe that's something you save and Roman actually has a title match at Survivor Series. I don't know. He's going to have a title match at Crown Jewel, so I think it's unlikely that he's going to have a title match at Survivor Series. I just think it's unlikely. But you don't know because now that Triple H is fully in charge of creative, we don't know what he really wants to do with Survivor Series yet. But hopefully they will not really care too much about the brand supremacy stuff. And if we're not going to get an entire entire card of IC champ versus US champ, two women's champions against each other, I really don't want to see that either. I just don't want that. So if that doesn't happen, I would not be opposed to having one match with a little bit of Raw and SmackDown bragging rights at stake. Because when you do the whole show like that, it makes no sense because why in the fuck would the wrestlers care? But if you did maybe like a Team Aldis and Team Pearce thing, which we've seen plenty of times, we've seen Team Bischoff and Team Stone Cold and probably other scenarios with similar stakes. I was at Survivor Series 2001, 22 years ago, Team WWF versus Team Alliance. So something like that, it could just be one match to where you can take everybody who's not involved in the top stuff with the Bloodline and, and the Judgment Day and put them in a 5-on-5 traditional elimination match with Pearce and Aldis in the respective corners. And then whoever wins, it's not necessarily brand bragging. It's more bragging rights personally between Pearce and Aldis. I'd much prefer that because who cares about Raw and SmackDown? At least if you have two people with personal stakes in it, it's really more about them than the whole brand. And at least that's a story. That's something you might actually be able to get behind. So I wouldn't be opposed to that. So if you want to do one match where it's red shirts versus blue shirts, if it's within the context of a feud of, Pearce and Aldis, then okay. But just do it one match. Don't book the whole damn card like that. We don't want Team Red versus Team Blue. Fuck that. But it can be done for one match. I don't care. What do you guys think? After that, we have that match that Tozawa was stupid enough to ask for. Taking on Bronson Reed. Tsunami for the win. What is there to say? And Maxine Dupree is very worried about her little squished friend. And then, main event, it is Damian Priest versus main event Jey Uso, main eventing Monday Night Raw. Good match. Love these two guys. Priest really does have Scott Hall-ish vibes to him, a little bit. He's big. He's got that same size and just size. He's got that voice. He's a very commanding voice. I like Priest. I hope he successfully cashes in whenever that happens. I like him a lot. Good match here with Jey Uso. Finn Balor is out there being a pain in the ass. He interferes, grabs Jey Uso by the leg, allowing Damian Priest to hit the South of Heaven for the win. So in both of the big matches tonight, Priest and Uso and Drew and Sammy both kind of ended with a very simple heel kind of distraction. It didn't take a lot. Like it wasn't a foreign object, or it wasn't multiple instances of interference. It was just one little distraction there from Mommy that allowed Drew to cram a claymore down Sammy's throat. And then here, same thing. It was just it was Balor just kind of grabbing Jay's leg. It was just enough for Priest to capitalize, and Senior Money in the Bank got the win. After the victory, of course, you look at the time, and when the 3 count happens, there's like 3 minutes left in the show. And so I'm writing down my Raw notes, and I'm typing, Priest hits South of Heaven for the win. Balor continues the attack. And as Balor is stomping, I'm like, I just type it out. I'm like, Cody hobbles out to make the save because I'm just waiting for it. There's 3 minutes left. Cody didn't get taken away in an ambulance. They made a big deal about that. So he's there. And we know what Cody does when he's injured. He goes out there and fights. He wrestled with half his body torn off in a Hell in a Cell match. He didn't care. So a little rolled ankle or whatever's wrong with him isn't going to stop him. So that's how predictable it was. I just started typing, Cody hobbles out. And then about 30 seconds later, Cody hobbled out. He takes down Priest with the chair, wears him out pretty good, getting a little bit of revenge. And I guess the story now maybe is he's going to go into Saudi Arabia with maybe kind of a bad wheel, but it's not like this was the go home. We still got a whole nother week left, another Raw before they even get there. So he's got nearly 2 weeks left to, kind of rest that injury, and we'll see how injured he is by the time we get to Crown Jewel. So that is kind of your Raw in a nutshell there. Next week, here's what they have announced. It's so cool that they did this. We have Seth Rollins versus JD McDonough. We've got Xia Li versus Candice LeRae, DIY versus Imperium, and Dominic versus Ricochet. So next week looks pretty decent. Hopefully the show will be better than what it was tonight, because it wasn't that great of a show and it was somewhat predictable, but we had a few interesting things happen, and we've definitely had worse Raws. So even though this Raw wasn't great, I'm just happy we're here and we're not living in 2019 right now. You know what I'm saying? Chris Ludek, I want to thank you for the $5. I hate Dylan Dennis. He's legit afraid to fight my wrestling coach. Granted, he's choked me out, but screw Dylan Dennis. He choked you out. You fought that douche. I never even heard of him. I never knew who he was until he started it's just that, those type of guys. Oh, I just can't. It's really hard to kind of describe a douche level that high. There's really not words in the English language yet that have been developed that accurately describes what a fucking piece of shit that guy is. And people like him. So that's crazy. Making Logan Paul a babyface. Hello, Ramviro. Good to see you. Okay, so we don't really know about Tegan's injury. I didn't even catch that over the week. I didn't even know that she had an incident on NXT that got her injured, but I don't think it's anything major because we would have seen it, right? James, yeah, maybe TNA eventually goes to a live format. I think maybe that's something they should just wait a little bit on, like wait until you get the name change done and the rebrand done, and you start doing these little things that you want to do. They need to get a better TV deal is what it is. They need to get on like a major cable station better than what they're on. Are they on Access right now? Which I think I get. I'm not even sure. But if they were able to find a better, TV deal somewhere, where that is, I have no idea. that would help, and if they were able to gain some audience or get ratings on the level of, maybe what an AEW Rampage gets or something like that, maybe they could go live, but going live is very expensive. So Anthem Media would have to be okay with not turning a profit for a while, unless that company grew. So it might be a thing where like, okay, we're going to go live. We're going to pay for it. We're going to give you 3 years to make it happen. And then if you don't start making money, then we're pulling the plug. I don't know how business works at that level, but I think it's kind of cool that they're going back to the TNA logo. I wish that would be a possibility for WWF, but I don't think that could happen now. I think if they did go back to WWF, we'd all be saying WWE. And then a lot of the fans now don't even know or remember WWF. It's just old farts like me. So I don't even think making that change would make sense. Even if there was a price tag and the pandas were like, hey, pay us this and you can have the initials back. At this point, might as well just stick with what you got. But Impact is a whole different story. This is something that I think in a lot of ways could be fun for the fans. And who cares if it was a play on tits and ass? Of course, Russo's an idiot. Of course he's an idiot. CM Punk was a play on Chick Magnet. We still say CM Punk, TNA. Things like that just happen. I always thought Dolph Ziggler was the stupidest name in the world, and I got used to calling him that. And there was a lot of wrestlers like that I thought they had insane names. But then as the years went on, got used to it, and it grew on me, But anyway, I think that's it for the night. I didn't have a whole lot to talk about because we had a pretty big podcast on Saturday, and all we had to really talk about here was the CM Punk stuff, the TNA rebrand, and what Will Ospreay might do, and run through tonight's Raw show. So I got to take a look at my schedule. We got this week's watch along already set for Sunday, and you might see me this week. There are some mic drops on the channel right now. I'm working on a couple of reactions. I've got some Patreon and member stuff coming. I'm going to put up an old school video over for the members and supporters on Patreon, so keep a lookout for that in the next day or two. And I'm working on a couple of reactions and basically just busy like crazy. But you will probably see me this week. We'll be here on Saturday for the podcast, of course, but you might see me before then because something might need to be discussed. So have a great rest of your Monday night. Thank you so much for being here. Good to have you guys here as always, and I will look forward to seeing you real soon.